We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Apologies for anyone who was watching live last week. Feed got screwed up. I don't know. I'm blaming it on Google. I got the completed version up in pretty quick order, so that seemed to have worked out. It's all good. Hopefully things go better this week. We'll try. We're here on a Tuesday again.
Anyways. So, yeah, it's April 2nd, so don't worry. We're not going to be doing any stupid pranks.
We certainly will not.
No, we won't be doing that. All right, let's just get right to the podcast because we're starting a little bit late, and I haven't eaten or any coffee or anything because not my fault.
You are rocking.
I am nailing it this week so far. All right, start off. This is the AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com, leave us a comment there, facebook.com/avrantpodcast. You can find our videos at youtube.com/avrant. You can contact Rob directly at rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is at firstreflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is go to www.avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. Excuse me. That's going to be happening a couple of times. Yeah, the coffee is going to be right back there. We'll get to that in a second. The Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link takes you to a PayPal donation site. So we want to thank Virgil for giving us a PayPal donation. Thank you very much, Virgil.
Yeah, Virgil, thank you very much for the donation. We appreciate it.
We want to thank our 81 patrons, down from 84 last week, at patreon.com. Patreon's a service where you can sign up for a monthly subscription to our podcast where you can delineate the amount of money you want to pay per month for our podcast, which can be as low as 1 or as high as infinity. So thank you to our 81 patrons.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up, it's like a voluntary subscription, an automatic monthly donation. You choose the amount, as little as $1 a month, if you please. And thanks very much to our 81 patrons over there.
Yeah. I guess so we're shooting for 100, right? We got to get to 100. Is that our next goal?
Sure. That makes sense. That is a reasonable goal to try and reach.
Yeah, I think so. Let's try for that. What will happen after we do that? We will say thank you, as we always do. And then we will do a 2-hour podcast every week answering every single one of your questions. That's how we say things. All right, let's see here. If you can't support us financially, if you support us in some way, just let us know and we will mention you. So David sent notes to Accessories for Less, Ascend, and RBH to let them know we sent them their way for his speaker auditions and his forever speakers. It's like he's getting married.
He's trying.
Virgil ordered a bunch of Ascend SE series speakers and let them know it was because of us. So he's told Ascend, I hope, not somebody else. Romaine,
it looks like.
It does
That's
look like
the way it's
Romaine.
spelled. I'm pretty sure.
No. I'm going to say it's not, though, because it sounds weird to say
Why?
out loud. I don't know, it's lettuce. It's lettuce. I mean, I'm
it
sure
could
the guy
also
knows
be a
this.
name. Where do you think the name romaine lettuce came from?
I don't know. Roman?
Just came out
It was
of the
Roman
ether?
lettuce, and we say it wrong because we're American. That's what I assume about everything, to be honest with you. I take some word that it sounds sort of like, and then say, oh, we just probably been mispronouncing it for the last 200 years because we're Americans. Romaine told Accessories for Less how thankful he was that we recommended them since they saved him 50% on his receiver. And the House of Cards James connected with Todd, the winner of our recent giveaway. Todd says he's enjoying the Philips Hue light bulbs and thanks all around. He didn't say anything about the other thing.
So as it turns out, James was he was like he bought himself like a box of Echo Dots. And then somehow misplaced the entire box of them. So he's like, I don't have any Echo Dots. He's like, do you want an Amazon Fire Cube instead? And so Todd was like, yeah, I'll take a Fire Cube. So
I didn't even know that was a thing that exists. That exists. What's a cube? Is it like a dot?
That's their TV thing that also blasts out IR like a Harmony Hub does. So take an Echo Dot, shrink the speakers even more because it's really not a speaker, but then add a gigantic IR blaster to it. So now you can talk to She Who Shall Not Be Named and have her control all your devices with a gigantic IR blaster. It's also a video playback device, the Cube, the Fire Cube.
It can play videos back on itself. It has a screen.
It's a Fire TV as well.
Oh my god!
So it's like all the things in a cube. So
you got a good job.
You got a good deal. So good to hear that James and Todd connected. That has taken care of that. All has worked out well. Everyone is happy. And also thanks to David and Virgil and Romain for talking us up to those retailers.
All right, let's get into the news here. First of all, I don't know if do you even put any of the stuff you didn't? Oh, April Fool's Day. It's down there.
It's down there in the comments.
We'll talk about that in a second. All right, in the news, back when Dolby Vision was added to the Xbox One S/X, it only worked with a handful of Dolby Vision TV models. Well, now it works with TCL's Dolby Vision TVs, thanks to a TCL firmware update, of course. And Vizio Dolby Vision TV should be close behind, although only 2018 and 19 models are confirmed. But LG's 2016 OLEDs are a no-go, so you're out o' luck.
Yeah. Yeah, they've officially said that one's a hardware limitation on the 2016 OLEDs. They're like, it's not going to happen. The 2017 and onward were one of the ones that worked right out of the gate. So those are fine. They were one of the. It was like LG and Sony pretty much when it first got added. Those are the ones that it worked with, but not the 2016 OLEDs. So unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Bummer.
So if you have Amazon Prime, you get Twitch Prime for free. And if you have Twitch Prime, you can get 12 months of Nintendo Switch Online for free.
Yep.
So does that mean I've got Amazon Prime, so I get both those things?
Yeah. I don't think you have a Switch, right? So
no, I don't know what that
is. It's just a worthwhile thing. This promo is going to be running until September of this year. So you got
to sign up for Twitch Prime? I thought I already got like Twitch subscriptions or something. Is it different?
I don't know. I mean, Twitch Prime is, it's a thing, but it's part of Amazon Prime. So it's just you do have to still sign up for it on Twitch and then link it to your Amazon account. And then they're like, oh, you already have Amazon Prime. Now you don't have to pay anything for Twitch Prime. I'm like, okay, so that all worked out. And then if you do have a Switch, even if you have already paid for a year's worth of Nintendo Switch Online, this will just stack on top of it. So
that's good.
Why not? It's like it's only $20 for Nintendo Switch Online for a year, but hey, why the heck not?
Well, I'm looking at it right now. All right, anyway, so we got to do this podcast. I can't do this right now. I'll wait till you're talking about something I don't care about. All right, some comments here. Of course, Monday was April Fool's Day. Emotiva's True K9 subwoofer was their big announcement, and I told Rob this, and I'm not afraid to admit it to all of you as well. I bought it. I looked at that and went, "That's stupid." And it is absolutely something they would do. Because it had like the thing that should have cued me in was the paw print wave guide.
It's a big old paw print in front of the driver that they photoshopped on there.
So
I don't know if that's
like
even photoshopped. They might have actually manufactured.
They might have actually manufactured that
photo.
thing. Yeah, it's what it looks. It looks does not look like a rendering.
It does.
But
I know.
Could be.
But I do like the controls on the back that they showed. Those are very good.
I did not see the controls.
Yeah, well, they have controls for K9 high frequency, because, the subwoofer is going to be playing ultrasonic frequencies that humans can't hear, but dogs could, because this is the true K9 subwoofer meant for audiophile dogs. Then they also have the mailman setting and the flea repelling setting. So there you go. It's good stuff.
Mailman setting. I didn't see. I should have looked a little bit closer. Here it is. Twitch Prime.
Huh? You're looking at Twitch Prime now. You went back. What are the?
I don't know. There? It just says chat color emoticons. Maybe I'm already subscribed. Choose how you put a subscription. I don't know.
I know that if you sign up for Twitch Prime, you automatically get to subscribe to somebody's channel for free or something.
I already did that. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
All right. Who cares? I'm off of that now. Pioneer's truly universal disc player from Ultra HD Blu-ray all the way back to Laserdisc. Disc both in NTSC and PAL. No HD DVD, of course, though, because
the guy who made it just forgot. He's like, oh yeah, I should have put that on there too, because it's a joke. But yeah, no, honestly, this one, if you get a chance to read through the copy, I will have a link for it, of course, on AVRant.com, and then it's also in the YouTube video if you want to pause it and read through the thing. But the beginning of the copy is believable enough.
Yeah.
And then they start getting into the warmth of analog video, and I was like, oh, okay, but that's still stupid enough that there are comments like that out there for real. And then finally down at the bottom, be like, yeah, this is clearly a joke by now. But no, it was pretty well done, that copy.
Yeah. And Monolith released their Monoprice released their Monolith cassette series for those of you that weren't paying attention to that. So
yes, I did like their tagline too, because everything was righteous something, brah. They're like, righteous portability, bruh.
So somebody likes Rick and Morty there, apparently.
Yep.
All right, Herb also in the comments here, so this is not April Fool's Day stuff, wanted to make sure that resilient channels are installed open side up. So for the guy that we were talking about last week.
That's right. If they're going on your walls, because if it's on your ceiling, it's going to take care of itself. But if it's going on your walls, Herb's just like, he's seen plenty of installations where they put them in with the open side of the resilient channel down, meaning that gravity itself is just it's trying to pull the drywall down, which is then basically pushing the open side in if the open side is on the bottom, short-circuiting the resilient channel. So, yeah, people don't read instructions. Just make sure it's installed correctly. Fair enough.
All right. Questions here. Scott. 2 years ago, Scott and his family sold their house, and bought a new one. The biggest appeal to Scott was a fully finished basement with 16 by 30 by 9 foot room connected to a bathroom, a bar, a closet where he could put his home theater equipment. It was perfect for the home theater he wanted to install, and his wife agreed. They did a large renovation on the place and moved in, but before he could install his theater, his mother-in-law needed to stay with them. Dun, dun, dun. Short term.
Yep, short term. That was the agreement.
That was agreement. Short term. Yeah, that's not how that works. And 2 years later, she's still there. No theater.
Yup.
So Scott has decided that the great room upstairs will become his 5.1.4 or 7.1.4 theater area, but it's 15 bajillion cubic feet.
Well, 15,000.
Open to everything, vaulted ceilings, all tile and hard surfaces, windows on the right side, partial wall on the left. So that's awful.
That is what he's dealing with. This is a wide open space. It is hard and reflective. It is most definitely not an enclosed rectangle. Over on the right hand side, there's a window. He also mentioned there is like a fireplace somewhere over on that right hand side. We can't really see it in the photos because some curtains are concealing it, but the right hand wall, windows and fireplace, that's what's going on. Yeah.
Windows and a fireplace?
There must be in between the windows there. There must be a fireplace in between those window curtains.
Well, he's obviously not using it, so
that's right.
Got curtains in front of it, so we can do something with that. All right, so yes, it is large. It is vaulted ceilings. It is reflective. It is tile on the floor. It must be loud as hell in there. No offense.
He even mentions it.
The acoustics. What the heck should he do in here? A single rug in front of his couch is the extent of his current treatments. It literally echoes in there. He was thinking a couple of panels on the front wall behind the speakers, panels anywhere he can stick them on the back wall above his kitchen cabinets, and anywhere else he can put them around the pool table and entrance area. There's a pool table in here if it wasn't loud enough.
That's
he
right.
could probably put a panel at the first reflection point on the left wall, but the right wall is windows and the fireplace. Any other suggestions? Can he possibly do enough to get decent acoustics? The answer to your questions, can you do enough to get decent acoustics, is yes.
Well, theoretically, yes. You could do so in any room.
Yeah, any room. Any room you could do it. There is absolutely no chance you're going to do it in this one.
Realistically, seems unlikely. Yeah. I mean, so again, regardless of the size of the room, we're going to want ideally to try and cover about 30% of the total surface area in absorptive materials.
That ceiling.
It would be realistically, if you could cover your entire ceiling, that would kind of take care of it. Because the floor is normally a place where we can be like, yeah, we can make that absorptive, but not in here. Yeah. So, your ceiling would be where, truthfully, I'm not worried about reflection points in here. It's just anywhere you can, you put absorption. Anywhere you can.
I 100% agree. I would be like, okay, wifey of mine, and she may be for this, she may be against it. Let's think of accent panels.
Yeah.
Let's just think of accent colors that we could put in here, and just to brighten up the place and to give it, because it's
anywhere that you might want to put artwork as well.
Right, any place you might want to put art, any pictures that you already have, let's replace them with a panel.
With printed panels, yeah.
If you can, that sort of thing. Just basically anywhere you can here. Yes, I 100% agree. I would not worry about first reflection points. I would not worry about anything like that. I would 100% just try to put panels.
We always have to come back to, what is your most limiting factor? And
right.
Here it's not that, my first reflection might be slightly smearing the imaging of... No. You have an echo, all right? We've got to get rid of the echo. And that is just the echo you can put absorption anywhere. So whether that's getting panels that are the same color as your existing wall and ceiling so that it blends in, whether it's getting accent ones that are a contrasting color so that they stand out and look like decoration, or getting printed panels so that they literally look like artwork, anywhere. As many as you can. Don't go over 30% of your surface area, but I really don't think that's a fear.
I don't see that happening.
I don't think that's a fear.
So where to put his surround speakers, and should he even attempt having surround back speakers? Speaker stands beside the couch for a no-go. He could mount them above the windows on the right side and match that height on the left, but is that too high? Yeah, in installations like this, having the 5-point something is kind of the way to go. The surround back speakers are just...
No, I mean, putting them like above the cabinetry in the kitchen, what is the point of that?
Yeah,
so
there's really...
I would go with 5 in here.
And if you can't put them next to the couch, then wherever you can, I guess, is sort of...
I mean, I'm wondering, because he's got this wall on the left, so could you mount some kind of on-wall or slim, like the Kef T series, that type of thing, on that left wall, and then just have it on the right? It looks like, where it would line up on the right-hand side is right about where the window is. But, even if you don't have quite enough room to, mount it on the wall that's just in front of or just behind the window, because he's got some space behind the window, between the window and door. And that's not so far behind that would be unreasonable to mount a surround speaker there. But if it can't go on the wall, could you put the one on the right-hand side on a stand? Because that's not a walkway. That's just where your couch is.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, if there's curtains on that side, so I mean, if you could kind of get it to where the curtains meet, just sort of tuck it in so that the curtains are around it, but not in front of the face.
But I'm thinking you do have some space on that right wall between window and door, or between window and fireplace, even if it's not perfectly lined up with where it's convenient to put it on the left-hand wall. It's like, that's okay. You're off by a foot or two. That's fine. So I would look at that. If it has to go above the window, something like a Prime Elevation mounted up there, everything in here is less than ideal. So I wouldn't be super against that. Yeah, it's going to be too high, but that's okay. It'll be angled down. Prime Elevation.
Yeah. He already owns a pair of Revel Concerta S12 surround speakers. They can be configured to run as dipoles, bipoles, or dual monopoles. Is it worth using them, or should he sell them and get something different? Well, clearly the answer is try them first and see what you think. But I think you'll end up wanting to get rid of them. They are meant to be a very diffuse speaker. Kind of their angle.
Yeah, they don't have to be, because they can be run as monopole.
But they're still firing in multiple directions, right?
Yeah, and they are quite large. I have those as well, and they are not small. So I could see if he was looking at those and being like, where can I put that on the right-hand side? I'd be like, yep, that's a challenge. It would fit in that space between the window and door. They're not so large that they wouldn't fit there, but it might look a little bit odd. I could see that
in a room that's full of reflections. I think having a dipole, or a trapezoidal type of speaker that's going to be firing in multiple directions is just adding insult to injury to this thing. I think that like a Kef concentric drive or something with a more directional, sort of almost like a sonic wave guide that they've got by having it, that I think will give you the best results in this sort of thing. You are going to have reflections. That's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, it's going to bounce off the floor and everything else in here. So, at least you get some real direct sound that gives your ear and your brain the idea, okay, that's where it's coming from. That's the direction. That's the sound I should be paying attention to. And some of the reflections may get lost in that. Atmos speakers. The vaulted ceiling is oriented so that the low parts are on the left and right, with the peak running front to back down the middle. But his theater area is over on the right side, so the ceiling mostly just slopes upwards from the right wall to his theater's left wall. He's heard us saying that we don't like in-ceiling speakers where only the tweeter moves. So should he just install 4 in-ceiling speakers, not worry about the angles created by the slope ceiling? That's I mean, there are in-ceiling speakers where
they have a built-in angle.
They have a built-in angle that you can and
adjust. Usually it's 15 or 20 degrees, which looks like so instead of building it in so that the speaker inside this angled in-ceiling speaker is angled toward you, you actually turn it around so that it's counteracting the slope of your ceiling and is thus aiming straight down, as Atmos speakers should. So yeah, getting some of the in-ceiling speakers that have the built-in 15 or 20 degree angle and then just using it to counteract your ceiling slope, I'd be in favor of that.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, it'll
in
be
this
close
situation.
enough. Close enough for sure. So I think that's fine.
I don't know. I mean, I would go with 5.1 or 5.2
and not worry about Atmos
and not worry about Atmos at this time. To be honest with you, I think honestly, it's going to be sort of a. I will say this as nicely as I can. I think it will be a modest upgrade, and I think most of the time you will not notice it and not care about it. I think,
and if your surround speakers end up mounted way up high, as might be the case, then yeah, I wouldn't. I'd do that first. Have a good listen. If you're like, gosh, I really need some speakers above me. Okay, I'm not going to stop you, and we've provided a solution that can work. But I might just try stopping at the 5 and seeing how that goes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I sit on this thing too. Anaheim Josh, let's see here. He's got a home theater that's in like the. I don't know.
Yes, we've talked to him before. It's a larger room where it's just the front left corner. He's got the 2 sliding glass doors, one of which never opens. So he's putting his theater area in front of one of those sliding glass doors.
All right, Josh, just thank you for setting him straight. Sounds like us. He got all up in his he got all up in his head about having perfectly matched speakers, but was going to wind up going with the passive soundbar and in-ceiling surround speakers anyway. So we talked him down, and now he's back to sticking with his existing bookshelf speakers, a phantom center, since he only cares about one seat, and not worrying too much about ceiling surrounds. Even though one of the requirements was invisible surround speakers, now he's considering on-ceiling instead of in-ceiling surrounds, such as the Focal SIB. Is that SIB?
It is SIB, yep. SIB, SIB.
I think it's raining. I think that's what that noise is. I'm like wondering what I'm hearing it.
Yeah, you would be unfamiliar with that sound. Yeah.
I am, yeah. Anyways, the Focal SIBs that the Accessories for Less has available, he was thinking that with their integrated mount, they would allow him to angle his ceiling surround speakers somewhat, as opposed to the completely fixed positions of any in-ceiling speakers. So is he right to assume that on-ceiling surrounds aimed at his listening position will sound better? Not really.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not worth it. And if invisible speakers would make the other people in your household happier, I'd stick with that. I wouldn't be going for swivel on ceiling speakers with the idea that the aesthetic compromise will be offset by much better sound. Like, nah, it's not that kind of improvement.
Okay, so just like in the last person we were talking about how having the ability to angle these things around or how reflective his room was is going to make a big difference. With you're going for just surrounds, and this is a theater area. I don't remember if he's going with room treatments or exactly what he's going for here, but the surrounds are essentially just trying to give you audio cues about what's going on behind you and to your sides.
And we mostly just wanted it for his gaming purposes because we're
exactly.
Like, it's enough to give you the directional clues of that is behind me and to my right, that is behind me and to my left, which is about all you need. And just flush in ceilings will still give you that.
Right. I don't really think you need to be angling them. And most of the time when we set side surrounds, we don't angle them towards the listening position. Right. We actually have them firing just directly across the back of the couch, and you're sitting off angle to them anyway. So I wouldn't. I just have regular old in-ceiling speakers, and you'd be fine. So since we saved him the money he would have spent on a passive soundbar, he could afford to get a PB-3000 sub instead of a SB-3000. Should he do that? No.
You really need to build yourself a cardboard model and see.
Yeah, you don't know how big that box is, sir.
That thing is.
Because I mean, it's going to take up a good proportion of your area here.
He's gone from asking could an SB-1000 work in here. We got him all the way up to an SB-3000. And now he's like, well, I could do a PB. I'm like, no, you started with a teeny tiny little sub. Now you
started with a box that's about like this. Just barely big enough for me to put my head in through the little hole, and that's about it, right? It wouldn't even sit on my shoulders. My head would be sitting on, the top of my head would be there, and you've gone to something that I could sleep in.
Yeah, I mean,
if I absolutely had to.
Take 8 SB-1000s and turn those into a new cube, and there's your PB-3000 almost. I mean, the SB-3000 I think is a good choice in here.
Well, yeah. I mean, at this point, whatever. But I would not get any sub that starts with P.
Yeah,
from SVS. I
not
would not
when you
get
were starting
anyone.
with the. I mean, the other person in this household wanted invisible speakers. The least invisible thing I can think of is a P. Well, I guess a PB16 Ultra is even less invisible because it's even bigger. Although sometimes when you go that big, you just like look right past it because it's now just your entire wall. I'm exaggerating, but still, no. I don't think you need a PB3000 in here, and that's just nuts. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were trying to pressurize the entire space, then we could talk about this, but you're not.
Even then, he doesn't
reasons.
really need it. Yes, he's got more than just his theater area, but it's not that big.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was open to the rest of anything.
That was about 4,000 cubic feet he's dealing with.
All right. So we said to do a subwoofer crawl. What tools and sweeps will he need? Well, you can go to audiocheck.net and download a sweep there. And basically, you just want to sweep from, I don't know, 100 hertz down to 20 hertz.
Yeah, I mean, I usually do the 200 to 220 like THX does, but
yeah, either way. I mean,
because it's just easier for your ear to tune into 200 first and then go down. But yeah, really, you only need the sweep, and honestly, you can just play a sweep off of YouTube. Like they have bass sweeps that play on YouTube. Right. You want something you can play on repeat, and I know people get super into this and they want to measure it, use Room EQ Wizard and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But for the purposes of a subwoofer crawl, which is the idea is to say, and he's had this scenario where he's like, I basically got 3 places I could realistically put this sub, maybe 4. The idea isn't to try and measure and see what's super linear and all that. It's just easier, instead of putting the sub in each of those 4 places and you going back to your seat and listening to the sweep and finding out, because that's a lot of moving the sub, you're just putting the sub where you would normally sit and you walk around to each of those 4 places, listen to the sweep, and you will hear that the volume level of that sweep sounds like a roller coaster in some of those places. You're going to have some where it's drastically louder and quieter at different points during that sweep, and it shouldn't be. The signal of the sweep is all of this sweep is supposed to be the same volume. You're going to find 1 or 2 spots, hopefully, where you don't have dramatic changes in volume. And even if you do, you want to find the one that has no huge dip in it, because you can't fix a huge dip with equalization. No matter how much you boost it, it's still going to be a huge dip. A big peak, since you only care about one seat, you can cut that down with equalization. So preferable if all of the 4 locations have large ups and downs. You want the least number of downs, the least bad downs, and you can just, that's your ears. No special equipment for that. Your ears will tell you that.
I honestly think it's kind of a waste, especially when you only have 3 or 4 locations. It's kind of a waste to go through this whole trying to measure stuff. I think just going, and it's really, and this is important, it's really putting your ears where your sub will be.
That's
and
right.
That means, that's why we say crawl. Where it's not like some sort of euphemism. I mean, you got to get on your hands and knees and get down there and put your face where the sub would be on the ground.
That's right.
And put the sub where your body will be on the couch. And
also easier with an SB-3000 versus a PB-3000.
It's true, though. You can almost stand up and listen to that one. So yes, depending on how much you weigh, it might break your couch. So you're going to get down low, listen in these 4 locations, 3 or 4 locations, and like Rob said, it should be fairly obvious. There's going to be some that are going to be bad. And that's going to be okay. That'll be good.
It's always fun when people haven't done a sub crawl before, and then they do it, and they're like, that is a crazy amount of difference that it makes, depending on where I am. It's like, that's how bass works.
So he was all set to get the 75-inch Samsung QLED, but now he's torn because it doesn't do Dolby Vision. He'll still be 7 feet away. Should he get a 65-inch OLED instead?
He went all the way from an 85 down to considering a 65, and we were like, the 85 is probably a bit too big from 7 feet away.
Well, yeah. I mean, mine's, 80, 82, and I sit about 8 feet away. And I think 85 would be too big. 75 seems all right.
75 seems right. And so this is a Samsung QLED. you're right, it doesn't do Dolby Vision, but the Samsung QLEDs do well over 1,000 nit peaks. So the vast majority of time, they don't need to tone map at all, because most HDR content is mastered to 1,000 nits, which they can show without any tone mapping. They can just actually do what the signal is asking it to do. Now, there is some content that's mastered to 4,000, or some that's even mastered to 10,000, or just not properly labeled in its metadata so that it defaults to thinking that it's 10,000, but it can tone map. So how important...
It's very hard for me to look at something, a feature like Dolby Vision, when there's other options out there and other ways of getting around it, for me to say, yes, you absolutely need it. It's the same thing with, okay, so when I look at features, I'm really worried about things that are not replicatable by other means.
Right.
So Odyssey, Multi-Q, XT32, all that stuff. That is something that I find to be beneficial by itself. And if you're not going to have that, then you need to get to YPOW, the RSC, with the, the whatever the room control thing is. You need to have something similar, but you won't find them both in the same box.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
the TVs right now, they have, HDR10, they've got Dolby Vision, they've got all these different ways of doing this. But to me, Dolby Vision alone is not a reason for me to buy something. And it's all things being equal,
it's more important when your TV is actually a bit dimmer, which usually these days has meant that it's the less expensive ones, but then they don't put Dolby Vision in it. Although that's changing a bit, it's starting to change a bit with the prices coming down.
Yeah,
but I
don't
really,
see any reason to really get to switch.
And since gaming is such a priority,
yeah.
I think you got to stick with the QLED. I would. Okay. And I wouldn't worry too much about not having Dolby Vision, because you're still going to get really good looking HDR. You're going to have the auto low latency mode. You're going to have the variable refresh rate, and you're not going to have to worry about burn-in ever. And you're going to get the size.
You get the impression of this guy just trying to spend, he's like, oh, I was planning on spending this much money, and then I bumped my budget up to this, and they keep talking me down, so maybe I can spend it over here.
Well, I mean, he just wants to make sure that whatever he buys, he doesn't have buyer's remorse, wishing he'd gotten the next step up, I mean, hey, if you want to get a 77-inch OLED and potentially worry about burn-in a little bit, since gaming is going to be a lot of your usage, okay. You can wait for the C9, because that one's going to have the variable refresh rate. But I'd go with the QLED here. I think that's the right choice.
So he's going to go with the Denon X3400H or 3500H receiver. It mentioned Dolby Vision pass-through, but not HDR10+. Is that a cause for concern? Another reason to strike a Samsung QLED from his list. I can't believe it can't pass HDR10+. I mean, what's the...
Yeah, this is such a weird thing, because they've got so Denon has the IMAX enhanced receivers. That's the 4500 and the 6500 and the 8500. IMAX enhanced is not listed on the 3500, but they all use the same HDMI chipset, and the IMAX enhanced ones can do HDR10+. I don't think it's the same as it was with Dolby Vision, where it had to be specifically supported. It doesn't seem to be the case, but even so, first of all, it's a little bit questionable whether the Samsung QLEDs even accept an HDR10+ signal from an external source, because it was pretty much the Amazon Prime app, and they didn't really change their HDMI inputs, although they can with those One Connect boxes and stuff. So all of it's a little bit questionable, but regardless, the only HDR10+ external source that you might be using would be a Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player, which has 2 HDMI outputs. So if it comes to that, you can send the audio and video separately via the 2 HDMI outputs. So regardless, I certainly don't think you should strike the QLED from your list. I still think that's the right choice for you. And it should pass through a 3500, maybe a 34. I don't get the 3500. It's the same price at this point anyway. So the 3500 should pass it through. It's the same HDMI as what the 4500 has, and that one does it. So I think you're okay regardless.
Mitch is in the mood to upgrade. He has a 7.1.4 set up using a Marantz SR7011 Emotiva XPA3 to power his front 3 speakers, a Rhythmic 15-inch sub, a B&W 683 series speakers all around, and 4 DefTech Atmos overhead speakers. For Atmos, I guess. He's mostly thinking he'd like to upgrade his front 3 speakers. He's enjoyed his B&W's his front speakers for the last 10 years, but now he wants the next step. He's got B&W all the way around, though, right?
B&W all the way around, but he's thinking front 3 is where he's going to start. He wants an upgrade and a change.
He visited a local dealer and is willing to consider as much as $5,000 per pair price range. He auditions the B&W 700 series and the Revel Performer 3 series. Nothing else at that particular dealer was of interest to him. He thought both sounded nice, with the Revel sounding a bit more even and wider in soundstage, but not quite as detailed as he would like. So neither option impressed him enough to buy on the spot. So what should he audition? He knows we've really praised the KEF LS50. I got that L.
You got that L going in there
before I even finished the first
jump
word.
The gun.
He knows Rob will say Ascent, the CR2s.
I will.
He recalls enjoying the original MK speakers, but that was many years ago, and it's a different company now. That is true. He owned Klipsch speakers prior to his current B&W, so he preferred the reduction in brightness and harshness. So what do we think might impress him enough to replace what he has? I am going to say as far up the RBH line as you can afford.
There you go.
Whatever that is.
I knew that'd be in there. I mean, that'd be their signature reference series, although there's no... I mean, so the signature reference series is where they go to the folded ribbon tweeters.
Right.
And the phase plug woofers. There is the regular reference series, the RBH reference series, which uses the regular dome tweeter and the regular non-phase plug woofers. And it'd be worthwhile if you find an RBH dealer. They should have access to both, and it'd be worth your while to hear both of them. I mean, if you're just doing in-store auditions, by all means, hear them all, right?
Right.
Can't possibly hurt to hear more options. But yeah, I'm all in favor of that. That's something that you definitely need to listen to find out if that's to your liking, because that's about as neutral as things get.
Right. And detail should not be an issue with them either.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will recommend to you the Ascend Sierra RAL speakers. You won't have to spend $5,000 a pair to get those, but, don't let the lower price point make you think that it's not worthy of being a competitor. No, by all means, those should be right in that mix, but he was already aware of that. I'm still going to say SVS and Aperion simply because they're free two-way shipping, so why the heck not give them a try? That's kind of there. They're not in that sort of price class, but...
Not even close, really.
I think, because it's free two-way shipping, why not just see what they have to offer? It's easy enough.
Sure.
Yeah. Were there any others on your list? Because I got a couple more.
Yeah, I was thinking. Go ahead, go.
Okay. Well, I know we have listeners who would be upset if we did not mention Legacy Audio. Ted, I know you'd be upset if I didn't mention that. Yeah, so, those are also folded ribbon tweeters, also folded ribbon mid-ranges if you want them. They have that available on some of their speakers. But Legacy Audio, it would be in that type of price range.
Okay.
So if you have that dealer of those, that might be something to your liking. And also Dynaudio does have some very nice speakers. I know Gary would be upset if I didn't mention Dynaudio. Those are his favorites.
Focal?
Yeah, Focal as well. The Electra BE series is probably more than that price range. If you're looking at the towers, they definitely are. The bookshelves would be in that price range.
But if you can't, well, I was going to say, yeah, bookshelves. I don't know how far away he's sitting from his speakers. But if you can't hear the raw or the Aperion speakers, one of the ways you can get an idea of what they sound like is to listen to the Focal BE ones, whatever they are.
The Ascends, you mean?
Yeah, I'm saying, didn't you say that Focal speakers and the Ascend speakers sounded similar?
Well, I wouldn't say they sound super similar. I would say they're of like similar levels of quality.
Okay.
It's that type of thing. But so he's saying he didn't want the Klipsch sound, and he doesn't necessarily want the B&W sound anymore.
Right.
He wants a little bit more detail, but he doesn't want any kind of harshness in that. I'm like, all of those are leading me to these type of beryllium tweeter type of examples, ribbon tweeter type of examples. I'm like, that's what they excel at, is that excellent delineation, excellent realism, but without any harshness. So that's leading me to those type of options.
It'd be very hard for me not to lean, even in all these examples that we've talked about, to anybody but RBH. Really,
I am all in favor of that as well. Yeah. By all means, get some ears. If you can get some,
you got to get some ears on those. If you can't, then then you do what you can. But those are the brands that we would.
Well, I think we've recommended quite a bit there, so that should give you some things to go look after and get back to us. Tell us what you liked.
Yeah, be interested to hear your take.
Mm-hmm.
Mark has been enjoying his 5.1 setup as 18 by 21 by 9 foot dedicated room with no windows. So, okay, weird.
He's got light control.
2 rows of seats using only an Outlaw preamp, B&K 5-channel amp, Epson 8350 projector, Sunfire Junior sub, and 5 Polk in-ceiling speakers. 5.
Those were his speakers. They were all
they were all in the ceiling.
They were all in the ceiling.
Okay. So now he's got $6,000 to spend in his upgrade time. He's pretty much set on getting the Denon X4400H. It's down to $750 refurbished right now, and since he already owns a 5-channel amp, expanding to Atmos should be no problem.
Correct.
He looked at Dolby's placement guidelines for his Atmos speakers, and it appears as though his existing Polk in-ceiling speakers fall within spec if he calls them front heights and rear heights. That makes total sense. Any reason to avoid repurposing what he already has installed? Nope.
For Atmos? Totally fine. Thumbs up to that.
100% for that one.
Yep. Using 5 in-ceiling speakers as your main speakers, thumbs down to that. I'm glad you're ready to upgrade, but repurposing them as Atmos, all for it.
Yes. A pair of SVS SB-3000 subs can be had right now for $1,300.
They're on sale.
If he also gets the Panasonic UB820 Ultra HD Blu-ray player for his anticipated HDR projector upgrade, that's about $2,600 out of his $6,000 budget. That's not a question. That's just a statement.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, is that a good choice? SB-2000s, a pair of them in this room that's 18 by 21 by 9. Okay, so that's a large room.
How do you feel about cylinder subs? You know,
I'd be real in favor of that, to be honest. Now, I mean, the thing is, he's coming from a Sunfire Junior, so
just real small.
It's still going to be an upgrade for that, but you have enough room size. So, I mean, most people are going to think we're utterly insane, although people who listen to this podcast will be like, you're not going far enough. So we are landing in the middle, but
we're damned if we do, damned if we don't.
We will say that if you went for PC-2000s, which are not drastically more expensive, I believe they're at $1,500 right now for the pair. If you went with those, we would tell you, yeah, that's all the output you will possibly need in this sealed 18 by 21 by 9
footprint wouldn't be hugely different either.
Footprint wouldn't be tremendously different. That's why we love the cylinders and are sad that hardly anybody buys them, and they're probably not going to be in the lineup forever because they already like 3000 series. Nope, not doing it. We had that guy in Germany, right? He's like, yeah, we sell 3 of these all year compared to the hundreds of boxes
Germany,
that they sell.
That's Germany. They like boxes.
Yeah, I like the idea of going a little beyond the SB-2000s, although if you can't because it's just about size restrictions, that's a reasonable choice. It's just if you want like the full 115 decibels at 20 hertz, you might not be getting it.
Yeah. So he bought 2 pairs of ELAC Unified UB5 bookshelf speakers on sale. $560 spent for those. I don't know how much they normally cost. So
yeah, usually I think it'd be $700 for 2 pairs normally.
All right.
Good savings.
So the UC5 center would have been $350 all on its own. So he was thinking he'd use 1 bookshelf as a center and keep a spare.
Because he's got 4 bookshelves, but he only needs 3 speakers.
Oh, up front. Okay.
Yeah.
It's still less expensive that way. Any reason to avoid using a third bookshelf as a center? Can he turn it sideways to better fit it beneath his projector screen? You won't need to. I mean, how big is that thing? It's not that big, is it? This is normal bookshelf speaker.
It's not that big, but more than that, the Unifis use a concentric woofer and tweeter.
Oh, then you should be fine. Yeah,
so it is
flopping on its side.
Totally fine to orient it whatever way you want. The dispersion is very even, up, down, left, and right. So, yeah.
Okay, so for everybody else who if they've got some sort of special waveguide on their tweeter, when you flip it to the side, you run the risk of what the waveguide is trying to do. It usually is give you wider dispersion than taller dispersion.
Right, yeah.
So if you flip the speaker on the side, you've now got taller dispersion than you do wide, which makes it more beamy. Coming from the center channel, something you might not want. So depending on the shape of the waveguide, sometimes you might call the manufacturer and say, hey, I'm going to flip this thing on its side to use as a surround. Can I turn this tweeter 90 degrees? You know, and they'll say, yeah, just unscrew it, screw it back in, it'll be fine. It's the same size. But if it's not, if it's something like a horn-loaded speaker where the horn is, you know, more of a rectangle.
Yeah, sometimes they're a bit oblong or something, yeah.
Then you won't be able to do that. So that's what you run the risk of doing. Usually with the projector screen, even if you can't make it, you know, have a acoustically transparent, put it behind all that other stuff, you can still put it below and angle it up. I have
just standing vertically, most speakers.
Yeah, just stand it vertically like everything else. I would have been okay with him doing that as well.
But in the case of the ELAC Unify, with a concentric driver where it has very even up and down and left and right, there's no problem turning it horizontal if you want to. Go right ahead.
So he needs wall-mounted surrounds. The ELAC Debut 2.0 series has a wall-mountable model. Should he get those? Yeah, sure.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah,
these are surrounds. I mean, these are different series, right? It's ELAC Debut 2.0 versus Uni 5.
But they should be voiced very similarly.
They're all Andrew Jones designs. You're not going to have wild timbre differences, and we are talking about surrounds. So, yeah, if you
told me that you found some Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers and wanted to use those at surrounds, I'd be like, yep, knock it out. I think that would be okay, too. So that leaves him somewhere close to $2,000 for a new projector. He was thinking an Epson 4010 for that price. What would we recommend? I'm guessing $2,000 won't give you a JVC.
It will not. No, not unless you find a real good used deal somewhere out there, but we can't guarantee any of that. So, I mean, your options would be, right, if you're coming down in the price range, we've got Epsons, so it's still the 3040 UB at the moment, or do I have that number right? But 5040 UB, sorry. It's still the 5040 UB at the moment, although the 5050 UB, if we get to the question later, is supposed to be coming quite soon. But those are over $2,000. The 5040 UB might be possible to get because that one is the outgoing model, but it does have the limitation of it cannot do 4K HDR at 60 frames per second. So if you want to game on it, it's definitely not the best choice there. If you do 4K HDR on the Epson 5040 UB, you're limited to 24 frames per second. That's kind of the key upgrade of the forthcoming 5050 is that it can do 4K HDR at 60 frames per second, which is what we wanted it to do. So that Epson 4010 or the 4000 that it replaced, same limitation as the 5040 UB. It cannot do 4K HDR at 60 frames per second. It's limited to 24. Also, the 4010 is basically take the 5040 UB, give it not as good black levels, not as good contrast, and the same limitations on the, the HDMI inputs there that the 5040 UB has. So, given that we have this lovely BenQ HT3550 4K DLP projector now, which is very improved over the 2550 that it replaces. Very, very improved. And it's at $1,500. And we're trying to get you to spend a couple $100 more on a subwoofer upgrade to the PC-2000s. Now we're under $2,000, but $1,500 is definitely under $2,000. I'm pretty keen on that BenQ HT3550. I think that's a darn nice choice. Checks all the boxes. Unless, I do have to say, if the reason you were going for the Epson is because you want motorized lens controls, I don't know, it doesn't sound like he's doing a constant image height thing where he's going to be zooming the projector in back and forth and wants to press a button to have all that automated. But the BenQ does not have motorized lens controls. Most the Epsons do.
Projectors at this price point are going to.
Most don't. But yeah, that's one key thing that's nice about the Epson 4010 is that right around $2,000 it has fully motorized lens. So that's a cool feature. But if you're not going to use that, I'd kind of lean the BenQ here.
All right. Mike wants to get going on constructing the seating riser for his back row. The footprint of the riser will be 13 feet by 8 feet. He wants it to be a freestanding riser that's not fastened to any walls. He doesn't want any weird vibrations, but he's thinking it would be nice if the riser could act as a bass trap. Sure. He's read a lot of different ways to build a riser. One thing he does not want to do is fill the whole thing with sand. I don't blame you. That sounds awful.
It is the best way to make it inert.
Yeah. He's thinking he'd like to use 2x8s to make the outer perimeter the maximum height for a step allowed by the building codes in the state is 8 feet and a quarter inch. So he was thinking he'd put 2 layers of half-inch plywood on top as a deck, but some folks at AVS Forum recommend more than an inch. What do we say? What?
So this is the platform on top, the flat surface on top.
Yeah.
He is thinking he wants to do 2 layers of half-inch thick plywood.
Okay.
With something in between. I don't know if he's going to use roofer's felt or green glue or what, something in between those 2 layers, but to try and get even more damping in there. But some folks on AVS Forum are like, well, you should really have it be 3 layers thick, and they should be 3/4 of an inch thick each layer, so much thicker than an inch ends up being your top surface.
I'd be more worried about the construction of the box on the inside. Making sure that you're not going like 2-foot bays, or 3-foot bays, and they're 18-inch bays. I mean, I'd be, constructing this thing as over constructed as possible on the bay side.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that next. So
yeah, but if you're putting I think a half-inch with a green glue or something in between would be.
Yeah, I mean,
fun.
2 layers of half-inch. If you go tongue and groove would be good. But that's easy enough. Plenty of plywood, tongue and groove. 2 layers of half-inch with, say, green glue in between. That should be fine. I mean, this is a riser. We're not building a literal outside deck.
Yeah.
Know?
Yeah. I don't know.
Just a riser for some seats.
SVS just likes people to tell people. AVS likes to just the forums. They just like to tell people to do more stuff. You know, they're
well,
like,
also, I mean,
if 2 layers of half-inch is good, then 3 layers of 3/4 inch would be better. Like,
sure.
I don't necessarily think that it's that much better. I don't really see what you're getting out of that. I mean, it just sounds like more work.
Yeah, 2 layers of half-inch should be fine. I did want to mention though, at most his riser is going to be 8 feet and a quarter inches, or 8 1/4 inches. That's what he's looking at, because he's thinking this would be a single step. I'm like, I don't know if that's tall enough to be an effective seating riser. Usually a seating riser needs to be taller than that to actually, for the people in the back row, for their sight lines to clear the heads. Well, it
depends on what seats are on top of the riser.
It does. If you have taller seats in back and lower seats in front, then that could work.
You're going to have to be real. I mean, if I were you, sir, I would take a seat of your new seats, or the couch, and I would raise it up 8 inches. I mean, literally just put the feet on the 2x8, and then put it behind the other couch, and then see what you see.
I just question that a bit. I mean, usually a riser, you have a step and then the actual riser, because usually you want about 12 inches. You know, you want it about a foot high for a really effective rear seat riser. So I questioned that a bit.
So for the stringers inside the riser, he was going to use 2x6s so the air can move freely beneath the riser. He'd fill the cavity with insulation. So what would he need in the way of openings or vents to make it an effective bass trap? Could he just put some heating register vent covers, or does he need to do some complex calculations to get just the right size, number, and placement of vents?
I hate the idea of 2x6s inside and open underneath, because the reason you would do that is if you want your riser to vibrate like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a design that a lot of people use because they want their riser to act like a butt kicker. But he said he doesn't want any crazy vibrations. I'm like, that's the opposite of what I would want to do. Also, pounds per square inch downward force is all now being put just into the perimeter of your riser. The whole middle of your riser is elevated in this case. It's not distributing the weight at all. I'm like, I am super not in favor of that. I want all of, I mean, I want you to build it like you're building a subfloor, right? Just
sure.
Joists, right? All of them 2x8s inside. In fact,
but then it's not a bass trap. It doesn't end up being a bass trap. He kind of wants it to do both.
It kind of can, because I mean, I would have you going 16 inches on if you want to build a riser that doesn't vibrate, right? So I can point you to Gene's Audioholics theater riser, but he built his to be a butt kicker.
Yeah, it sucks, dude. I hate that thing.
Yeah, Tom's been on it and doesn't like the results. But he did that by building the whole riser to be very strong and sturdy, but then floating the entire riser on Orlex U-boats. That's how Gene ended up doing it. Now, if you just get rid of the U-boats from underneath and you just have that force distributed over lots of joists. I mean, so the way I would do this, since you don't want to fill it with sand, I would want to fill it with sand. I mean, not all the bays all the way to the top, but I would want to, you put some plastic down in each of the bays that you've created and fill it partially with sand, and that makes you a very, very inert riser. The rest of the height there you fill in with insulation. That's how I would want to build it, but you don't want to do the sand, that's fine. So, but that means the physical structure of this riser needs to be sturdy and strong and not vibrate. That means I want you to use 2x8s for all of the what basically looks like joists, and then I would actually want you to put cross beams in too. To really beef up that construction, since you're not going to be damping it with any sand. So once you've done that, now you have all these bays that are, 16-inch on center bays and then cross beams in between. But I would use what Gene used to turn his into also a bass trap, which is You drill a hole with a hole saw right in the front of each of those bays, through each of the stringers, through each of the cross beams inside too, so that you basically have created a tube of air that goes through each of those joist bays. Now you put your insulation in there. You can have another opening at the back of each of those bays because he wants this to be freestanding. So that means you have a little bit of a gap somehow between this riser and the wall. It's not, sealed to the wall. So I would have a hole at the front, a hole at the back, whether that means putting in a register so it's coming out the top. That could also work. But you basically have created a tube for the air to travel through, and you put insulation wherever that tube is, and now that's where the air has to go. Through the tube, through the insulation, now it's an absorber.
I was just looking at Gene's, how they built his. Yeah, you can just follow these instructions.
But just don't do the U-boats.
Just don't do the weird U thing. Yeah,
just don't float it. So there you go. Follow Audioholics' guide, just don't float it.
Mario bought a Denon S930H receiver refurbished from Accessories for Less. He's really enjoying the sound, and when he's playing actual content, everything works fine. All his speakers play, and it sounds great. If the next words out of this man's mouth are Xbox, I'm going to be very irritated.
It is not. It is not.
But if he goes into the manual speaker settings and plays the pink noise test tone for each speaker's trim level, the left surround channel does not play. Again, the left surround channel does not play. The left surround speaker plays just fine actual content, so it seems to be just a trim level test tone. Should he bother getting the exchange or warranty repair, or should he just not care about this issue? If it's under warranty, I would totally get the warranty.
Yep.
I would.
If it's under warranty, I'd go ahead and get it repaired or replaced, because why the heck not? It's a thing that should work that doesn't work for some reason. It's weird.
And honestly, it could live that way forever, and it would be fine. Or it could be the first in a cascade of issues that are happening because something was not wired correctly.
I mean, I would also be curious. He didn't say whether or not he ran Odyssey, and if you do run Odyssey, does it play the chirp tone out of the left surround speaker?
True. Yeah.
I would assume that it does, but it didn't specify, so that's another thing I would check. But yeah, I mean, if you're still under warranty or a return window, I'd just do it, because why not? Why shouldn't every feature work the way it's supposed to?
That's right. They got it for Accessories for Less, and they're good about that.
They are very good about that stuff.
Raj in India. Raj is currently building his home theater. It's a dedicated 28 by 13 by 8.5 foot room with total light control. Well, this is interesting. The walls and ceilings will be black. Okay, so he can make it a bat cave. His plan is to have 2 rows of seats, approximately 16.5 feet from the front wall for the first row and 22.5 feet for the second row. How big is this?
28 feet long, so that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
He already purchased 11 JBL Arena speakers and a Marantz SR6013 for his planned 7.2.4 setup. He has pretty much wiped out his budget, so maximum bang for buck is what he's looking for with the rest of his purchases. Man, he's in India. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So he had planned for a 150-inch screen size, but once he accounts for the width of 150 inches plus a screen plus the width of the JBL Arena front towers in this 13-foot wide room. This is a long, narrow room.
It's a long and narrow, yeah.
It would mean the towers are basically right against the side walls, only 1 or 2 inches away. So should he go for a smaller screen size instead? You should go for a false wall, says the person who's just in an acoustically transparent screen. I mean, that would be the optimal solution. Optimal solution. That is the key word, the optimal solution. But it would mean more cost because little bit of cost to construct the false wall. That's not so much. But acoustically transparent screen versus just a run-of-the-mill white screen, that is definitely going to be more expensive. There's no way around it, right? No, that is true. So I mean, but no matter what, he's saying that he's wiped out of his budget and he still doesn't have a screen. So saving. Well, he had budgeted for the screen. Right. Okay. So, yeah. So your options are this. These are really your options. A acoustically transparent screen. You can put all 3 or whatever speakers behind there, perfectly, and you'll never see them, and it'll be beautiful and everything like that. Or you get a smaller screen and you move it into the room so you get the same field of view, and then your speakers can be. Or you move all your seats closer is option 3. Well, I guess that could be that too. Yeah, you could do that. I mean. He did say though that he likes the longer viewing distance. It's just more comfortable and all that, and he has the room length to do it. And I get that. I understand that. And if that's going to be the case, so let's just take it as is. If this is going to not be an acoustically transparent screen, because that would increase the budget, and it's going to hang on the front wall because that's what you plan to do, and the seats are going to be 16 feet away.
then I personally wouldn't want to go smaller than 150 inches. I also
Right.
wouldn't want to go larger because, well, A, you really just can't fit any larger. But also, once you go larger than 150 inches, most home theater projectors just can't get bright enough to really make that work. Now, he's in a full Batcave room, so it's less of a concern. But 150 inches is kind of the max, in my opinion. So
yeah, I actually tend to err smaller than that.
Exactly.
For most projectors, I think like 135 is about as big as I
Exactly.
want to go for a home theater projector, unless you're getting something that's a light cannon. It's well known for
That's
its
right.
light output.
Yeah.
But 150 should be mostly okay.
So, I mean,
but
everything here, I think the 150 is doable. You have just, so you could put like some, 2-inch thick absorption panels right on the side walls, right beside and just in front of where your front towers are going to be. They're basically going to be right up against those side walls, but they'll have this bit of absorption next to them.
Right.
So I mean, is it optimal for sound? No, not quite, but compromises made. This is a theater. You want the large screen size. If you're going to be 16 and a half feet away, I wouldn't want to go shrink the screen size. So it's either you do that and it's okay. I'm saying that you'll be all right with that, even though your speakers are way to the sides, or Tom's idea of you get the 135-inch screen and you just move it closer to you. And the speakers will be closer to you as well.
Hey, I'm going to take umbrage with this. I like the screen to be farther, far away thing. That's not real.
Well, there's a little
it's-
bit of a physiological thing, right? Because at 15 feet or more, our eyes go to infinite focus. Our lens is no longer involved in the focus that our eye sees at 15 feet or farther. So
He is going to be in a completely blacked out room. I think that the illusion of how close or far away it is going to be more psychological than it's going to be real.
I mean, moving your seats close is the easiest thing you
That's
can
the
do.
quite possibly the easiest thing that you could do. And then now you're looking at 3 rows of seats instead of 2 rows of seats.
That's true. I mean,
Now
you could
get
actually just put
tons.
a row of seats in front of what was originally going to be your front row.
Right.
And that
Suddenly
becomes
you've got
really-
enough. You invite the whole town over or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know where you live. I mean, Mumbai, not so much. But you having that 3rd row of seats really close, or much closer, means that you can shrink that screen size, and then you're like, oh, this is something that that I'd like to sit close to, so I sit in the 1st row or the 2nd. You know what I mean? Then you've got like a lot more options there.
Yeah.
Then you've got to start talking about side surrounds. But let's
if you go the 150 with the towers just to the outsides of it and a couple of inches of insulation on the walls beside and just in front of those speakers, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
It's still going to work. It's not going to be the end of the world, and I would be okay with that as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
So there, you've got options. So he's thinking because of the budget, he'll stick with the not too expensive 1080p projector for now, something like the Sony HW45 at 150,000 Indian rupees. I cannot. The last time I was there was 1999, so I don't remember what the conversion rate was there. But I
It
think
ends
was
up being, that's about
70
$2,200 US roughly.
It was like 70 rupees to dollar last time I was there, I
Right.
think. Would be his absolute maximum budget under consideration. The lowest priced 4K DLP projectors like the Optima UHD50 or the BenQ TK800 are around that price point too, but they prefer to spend less. The Epson 3700, for example, is around 95,000 rupees, close to the current $1,300 US price point after currency conversion. So what would we recommend? 150-inch screen, you're going to want to make sure you got something that puts out a bunch of light.
Yes. And the 3700 would fit that bill.
Right.
The HW45, not so much. That one, you could, but you'd have to run it in high lamp mode, which means now you're dealing with noise and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, the 3700
Since you're going to be sitting close to the back of the room anyways. Well, what's the throw distance on these things, too? That's something to consider.
Right, yeah. I mean, all of them are ceiling mountable, of course, but...
right, but then to me, having the projector mounted behind me is about as important as anything else in my home theater. I hate having the projector in front of me.
Oh, really?
I can't not look up at it every once in a while. I see this light source there, and no matter how much you try to black everything out, there's still a little bit of light on the ceiling. It drives me nuts.
Well, the Epsons do have the longer throw distance, so if that,
Yeah.
you'd be leaning Epson. Because the other one I was thinking, so I was like, first of all, that BenQ HT3550, is that a consideration? $1,500 US. No, over there it's like 250,000 rupees. So
too much.
definitely over the price range there. The 2550 that it's replacing, which isn't really as good and I wouldn't super highly recommend anyway, that's still like 220,000 rupees over there. These are all just Amazon prices I could look up because I don't know where else to look in India myself.
Sure.
But I'm like, Amazon India, give me some ballpark idea, I would imagine. So we're getting down into, so if you were going to consider something 4K, right, like also the Epson 4000, still more expensive than he was looking at. We're into those BenQ, the lower price trends. There is the brand new TK800M, which is about 160,000 rupees. So that'd be like probably your only halfway decent choice for a 4K projector, but you're never going to get HDR on a 150-inch screen. It's just not worth it. So if you, for some reason, didn't want to do the Epson 3700, because I think that's a very appropriate choice, and it's in a price range he's willing to go for, 1080p, but that's fine. It's got lots of light. The alternative would be BenQ's HT2050, which is their 1080p one, which is still really nice, tack sharp, good colors. It's got the RGB color wheel in that HT2050, or I guess the 2050A. And I believe I saw that on Amazon it was just over 100,000 rupees. So
that's pretty cheap compared to other stuff.
Right around the same, but it's the 1080p model, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking it's between, for me, the Epson 3700 and the BenQ HT2050. They're both 1080p models. They're both nice and bright. The BenQ has a much shorter throw distance. So if you would prefer to have the projector closer to the screen and in front of your seats, it'll be the BenQ. If you want a longer throw distance with the projector farther back, it'll be the Epson. And I think that kind of decides it for you.
All right, he would like to end up with dual subwoofers, but realistically, he'll almost certainly start with one sub for the time being and then add the second one later. HSU is not easily available without expensive shipping in India. SVS is available, but not particularly great prices. Klipsch is widely available, but he's thinking his best option might be Rhythmic, which has pretty good prices in India for some reason. Yeah. For example, the SVS PB-2000 is 100,000 rupees, but the Rhythmic LV-X12 is 85,000. So the LV-12R is only 68,000. I don't know what the difference between these guys are, but whatever. Would the SVS somehow be worth spending that much more? Would the Rhythmic LV-12R be enough? What would we recommend? His room, what is that LV-12R? It's a 12-inch driver for sure.
Yeah, the LV-12R is really, really similar output and extension-wise to a PB-1000. It is 28 by 13 by 8.5. I'm questioning that a little bit. Yeah. I like the LV-X12 here a lot. It's super similar. So it might be a tiny step down from a PB-2000, but remember the PB-12 NSD that the PB-2000 replaced? That's basically almost exactly what the LV-X12 is.
That should do this room pretty
That would
well.
be a really good choice. And it's 15,000 rupees less than a PB-2000 for whatever reason. That's great. I think I think the LV-X12 is a really appropriate choice, output and extension-wise, for your room size.
28 by 13 by 8.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like borderline large.
Yeah. And your multiple rows of seats, I'm assuming you care about more than one seat in here. You're going to want duals. If budget is such that you must start with one and get the second one later, that's okay. That's okay. But do plan on having duals at some point.
And just remember, though, you're going to be about placement of these things as well, because, we're going to tell you either, front, left, and right, front, opposite corners. Which are probably have a problem.
Corners, maybe.
Which is going to be a problem if you have your speakers set up there.
Right, yeah. Your speakers are basically in your front corners, but could you do middle of the front wall, middle of the back wall, or middle of the two side walls?
Center channel is. So side walls maybe, but there's usually walkways there. But you could also do the thing where you're essentially cheat in, to the on the front wall, cheat in on the other side of the front speaker on the left, let's say, and then on the right wall, in the back on the right, you cheat in the same amount.
Right.
And
there's ways in here. I mean, he's got a long room. All of his seats in his plan are behind the center point of the room. So if you did the midpoints of the two side walls, that's probably still fine. It's not going to block any walkways for you. Or if you did somewhere on the front wall.
Are you seeing a plan that I'm not seeing?
No, he didn't send it. He didn't send it.
We don't know where the doors are. They could be.
We don't know where the doors are. That's right. But no, I mean, having the two subs across the room from each other in some configurations should be doable. In a room this size.
Yeah. Just keep that in mind. Valeriy?
Valeriy, yes.
Valeriy. All right. Valeriy has
a Russian name, right? As far as I know.
How would I know?
I'm pretty well.
Valeriy has a
I'm
50.
pretty sure it's a Russian name.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any sort of racist comments like that.
How is that? That's not racist.
That is exactly racist. You're making assumptions about somebody's racist based on their name. I don't know where he's from. He could be from anywhere.
Heritage is not racist.
I'm offended for this man or woman. I'm not going to judge.
Etymology has become racism. Wow.
That's right. So we're very sensitive over here in America these days.
Apparently.
We're closing the border to Canada next.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You guys
we might need to close it on you guys. We're more scared of that coming that way.
You got a better chance of building the wall than we do. All right, Valeriy has a 55-inch C6 OLED. Wow, we went political real fast there. He's been using it. He's been using it for 2 years or so. Moderate use. He does not leave it on a single channel for hours on end. He's only ever used the built-in YouTube and Netflix apps, which automatically activate a screensaver if you don't move anything for a few minutes. If he puts up a full red screen, he can clearly see burn-in of the YouTube logo in the upper left and Netflix logo on the lower right. They're easier to see in real life than the photos he sent, but thanks to the full red screen, they aren't noticeable without real-world content. I'm looking at these pictures and I see nothing.
Well, you can probably see the little square that
I do see the square.
The little square in the lower right-hand corner. You can see the faint outline of the YouTube, play button logo in that upper left shot. It's kind of faint in the picture, but he's like, it's worse in real life. He's saying, but he's like, he pretty much only sees it on a full red screen, which obviously is not.
Aren't those logos red though?
Yes, they are.
So maybe those phosphors have just
aged,
they've been used a lot more, so they aged a little bit during that.
They have prematurely aged more than the rest of the screen because they are bright red logos. That is pretty much exactly what has happened. I mean, that is how burn-in occurs on an OLED. It is not necessarily, well, that's coming up in a question. It's not necessarily 100% permanent, but it is not the easiest thing.
Everything else will catch up eventually.
Right.
So we said that the worry about burn-in OLEDs has been overblown and that if you don't abuse your OLED, it should be fine. But here it is on this C6. It's an amazing-looking TV, but it was not cheap, and it's upsetting that it might have a permanent stain from just normal usage. Are the newer OLED models any better in this regard? Does this make the case for LCD TVs being a better choice? This is something that you can only notice on a full red screen.
Full red screen. He says himself he doesn't see it when he's just watching regular content, but he knows it's there. It's in the back of it. I get that. I totally get that. Right. It's the same.
I
as
had a projector that had
a stuck pixel that is like becomes the only thing you can look at. Right.
Well, I've had projectors that have gotten a little bit of dust. You know, they get a little dust in them. You get these little green blobs, and you can't see them except on full black. On full black, you can see them. You never see them during content unless the content is full black. I mean, I'm not talking about, it's a starry field. You can't see it on a starry field. You can see it if the screen is full black.
Interstitial frame, yeah.
Right. And that's it. And yeah, I mean, it sort of drives me nuts, but that's just sort of, if you can't see it, you can't see it. I don't necessarily think that this does anything except that say that, things age over time. I'm sorry that happens, but I don't think that I would not classify this as burn-in. I would classify this as premature aging.
There is also that, this isn't necessarily permanent, although it could take a very long time or a lot of effort to try and kind of reverse this a little bit. I mean, I'm certainly not going to stop recommending OLEDs because of this, but I understand where you're coming from. Please don't take it that way. I get it. I mean, when I had my first traces of some burn-in on my Curl Plasma, I freaked the heck out because that was not cheap and it was very upsetting to see. And I couldn't see it during the vast majority of the time. But in that case, if I put up a full gray screen on my Pioneer Curl, I could start to see some traces of some little burn-in going in there. And I stopped playing video games on it because of that reason. I was playing a lot of Left 4 Dead at the time and the HUD was starting to burn in. Freaked me right out. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But yeah, I mean, this is tough because it's not that he was like, I've been gaming on this thing for hours and the HUD has started to burn in, as you would expect. He's just like, I've been using the built-in apps. They have a screensaver. I'm not leaving it up there burning for hours on end, but it's still got a little bit of this ghosting of an image, a little bit of this what could be burn-in. I mean, it's not enough for me to say I'm gonna stop recommending OLEDs. I do still say that if you use an OLED at all, you're gonna get burned, and I'm like, that is still overblown. Everybody has confirmed that. Even Artings Ratings, who was like all over this to begin with, by the end of their thing, they're like, not as bad as we thought it was. So,
yeah, and like I said, I definitely see where this guy is coming from. You know, I see where his concern is. He spent a lot of money on the TV, and he's got this. He's noticed something.
Yeah,
that is, you know, less than perfect on it.
Yes.
But you know, it's...
I mean, the thing is, if you got an LCD, you'd be complaining about the dirty screen effect or the uneven backlighting, because they have that.
Right.
And none of these are perfect. None of them are perfect. They all got some minor issues.
Right.
I don't know.
He says, is there anything we've done to remove or reduce the burn-in on his C6? Well, the only thing that comes to my mind is you would have to create a full red screen and then black out those little edges, those little spots.
You do the inverse screen.
You do the inverse screen, basically, and that would create...
That would age the rest of the red to catch up to the premature aging of those particular spots.
And I'm not, I want to make it clear, I'm not here blaming the victim, if you want to call them that, you know, but, you know, this is not a normal use case scenario either, where we've got somebody, you know, most people don't watch solely YouTube and Netflix. You know, they watch a bunch of different stuff, you know, and where these things are maybe being shown as often. I've actually never even heard of this before, this kind of thing happening with these logos, but it certainly
it certainly happens with channel logos. If you watch one particular channel a lot, you know, that stupid little bug that they put in the bottom there, it definitely happens with those. Yeah, no, this is tough. Has it been improved on any of the new ones? A little bit. They've redone some of the OLED panels themselves. I don't know how you're going to
stop aging, though. You know?
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to do that? I mean, the only real solution is that if, you know, it would be to have some sort of, you know, sensor within the monitor itself that says, hey, we've got some pixels which are prematurely or being used more than other ones. We need to make sure that we dim everything else down so it matches.
Which is exactly what the C8s and C9s have. That they have a channel logo bug detector that actually dims locally that portion.
Right.
So that it doesn't age quite as much.
I don't know that that's the solution I want. I'd rather have just those few pixels that dimmed instead of all of them all around it. But
yeah, I don't know what to do, because I mean, I get you, I hear you. At the same time, you yourself are saying when you watch regular content, it just doesn't show up. So you've got to try and console yourself. That's not the TV's thing at that point. That's, you know, your brain getting right. Which believe me, I get where you're coming from, so please don't take it that way. But yeah, console yourself with the fact that with regular content, you're not seeing it.
And do yourself a favor. Do not ever point it out to a friend.
Yes, exactly.
If you point out to a friend, they are going to mention it every single time they see it. Because I pointed out the green blob thing to a friend of mine who's been over here tons of times. This was before I switched projectors. And he was like, green blob, huh? Look at that. Every time a black screen came up, I'm like, you're just a son of a...
That's right.
You know what. All right, Phil. Phil is sitting 9 feet away from a 2016 55-inch Samsung TV and a Harman Kardon SB-20 soundbar in his living room. He wants to upgrade. I don't blame you. What is the biggest screen we recommend for his 9-foot scene distance? 65, 75, bigger? Bigger?
9 feet. You could do a 100-inch screen there. That would be a very appropriate size to me. 9 feet. 100
but it sounds like he wants to go with a flat panel.
It sounds like.
If I would not go 65. Agreed. 75, you could make a case for.
Yes.
But anything bigger would be okay too.
85 would be real nice.
Yeah.
Be real nice. But yeah, we don't know for sure. So could you use a projector in here? Because that's a seating distance. A lot of people are thinking 9 feet, 10 feet. That doesn't seem like where I would use a projector. No, you absolutely should. If you want a 40 or 45 degree field of view for movies, you got to go projector. 9 feet, 100 inches is perfect to me. That's
whenever somebody says a 55-inch TV and a sound bar, I think above a mantle every single time. You know,
or a bedroom setup.
Yeah, or a bedroom setup. Yeah, but 9 feet away from a bedroom setup doesn't sound very.
Yeah, 9 feet. I'd want larger than 65 for sure. Yeah. I could probably tolerate a 75. I'd want to go even bigger.
Yeah. So, what model of TV would we recommend?
Without knowing budget, without knowing if this is flat panel or projector, that's tough. But I have some ideas in mind.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about a bunch of different projectors in here during this podcast. So if projector is the way you want to go, you've got some options that we've been discussing.
Yeah, I mean, $1,500 for that BenQ HT3550. I'm hyped about that thing. And on a 100-inch screen, it would do HDR real nice. So
as far as a flat panel goes, though, it really depends on the lighting control and the what's going on in your room. So would we recommend the OLED? Well, not if it's a living room.
$6,000 or $7,000, a 77-inch OLED. Why not?
We don't know what your budget is. Yeah,
I don't know.
But there's the larger Vizios,
they don't go up to the 85-inch though. So 75 inches for sure options, but they don't have 85-inch options from Vizio or TCL.
Samsung does though, right?
Samsung definitely does, and that's certainly going to be so if you have a bright room, if you're like projectors out because my room is always bright, if you want the best anti-reflective screens, that's going to be a Samsung QLED. Now I would have you go for a Q8 F, and actually I might have you go for a Q8 FN, even though the Q80 is just coming out now, because in the 75 and 82, they don't do 85 at Samsung, they do 82. But in the 75 and 82-inch screen sizes on Samsung, I'm pretty darn sure they're doing their wide-angle screen thingy, which Sony is also doing this year on their very large screen sizes. And though I'm not a fan, it's like it improves the off-axis viewing, but it totally shoots down your black level and contrast. I'm like, that is not a trade-off worth making. So I might point you to a Q8 FN all the way. Now, if that's too expensive, I would point you to a Q6 FN, which is the edge-lit version of it, but the price comes way down as a result to get the big size. Now, if you can afford it, I like Sony's X900F a whole lot, and even though the X950G is just coming out at the 75 and 85-inch screen sizes, it uses their stupid X wide angle thing with the horrible black levels. I don't like it, so I would point you to an X900F. It's a real nice 85-inch LCD TV that you could get. If that's too expensive, look at a Samsung, probably the Q6 FN.
If it were me, the thing that I would be caring about, in order of well, I guess it would kind of depend on your room, but generally speaking, I would be looking for local dimming zones and size. Yep. Those are the two things I'm really worried about more than anything. I'm not so worried about refresh rates and some of the other things. Depending on how you're seated, the anti-reflective glare, the screen may or may not make a difference to you. But the two things that I think would be forefront in my mind is it the right size and does it have local dimming? Because edge lit ain't for me, Haas.
But that does mean the price is going to be up.
I understand that.
It's going to be a higher price point. So that might mean coming down to the 75-inch screen size, right?
Might mean. And I would, if it's 75 or 82, I'd probably go 75.
75 with local dimming versus 82 with edge lighting.
Yeah. So he's interested in trying Atmos and a DTS X, but the sound system has to remain a SoundBar. So he's been eyeing the Samsung HWN850. Any comments or suggestions? We've said it before, and basically any sort of SoundBar that you get that is purporting to do Atmos is really, as far as we can tell, it's doing nothing but playing with the face to make it seem like it's coming above your head.
I mean, the N850, it does have upward-facing drivers.
Big deal. I don't really think that makes any difference. That's psychological.
It's fake.
I wouldn't be surprised if those things don't even play anything. Not real. I mean, they might be passive radiators for all I know. Anytime we talk about a soundbar that can do, really good, convincing surround sound, I'm going to say Yamaha.
Yes.
Their DSP, whatever it is, projectors that they have.
Digital sound projectors, yeah.
Those are the ones that they're expensive. They're going to be over $1,000 to start with. Now, is this guy in the UK? Because the Samsung link that you got on here is from the UK.
That's the UK. Yeah, then I guess he is, yeah.
So that's going to change, as far as what things are pricing and what things are available to you. But if you can get one of their DSP, the digital sound projector models, I wouldn't care so much about the Atmos part of it. I don't think that Atmos is really
they have an Atmos one, so
they do, but I don't think I'd care that much about it. I would care about how well it steers it convinces you about sound. This is one of the only solutions, as far as I can see, that actually
works. Yeah,
bounced sound. And if it doesn't work in your room, they have the option of using a phase type solution,
right?
And you can switch between them and decide which one works the best for you. And by all accounts, including my own, it's very convincing.
Right.
So don't get their entry-level models, which have like 6 little drivers in the very front. Those are garbage. But the true full-fledged digital sound projectors are definitely worth it. And if you're looking for an upgrade, that's where I would go.
I can get behind that. They are physically large, so I don't know. They're not slim. They do not fit the slim soundbar category. So digital trends, they're pretty high on the Samsungs, like that N850 that you're talking about. But everybody who's heard them, they're like, yeah, it gives you a kind of a sense of Atmos, not real Atmos. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. But as a soundbar, they're not too bad. My preference is for the Sonys here. If you want the ones that do the Atmos and DTS:X, at least Sony doesn't even try to say they're doing anything other than phase manipulation, because they're like, yeah, we don't have any upward firing drivers. We're doing this all through digital signal processing. So their HT-Z9F, or Z9F, since you're in the UK, you would understand what that letter is. The HT-Z9F from Sony, that'd be the way I would go.
Z. I wish we said Z.
It is the name of the letter.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Billy. When Billy first wrote to us, we mentioned how we would prefer side surround speakers instead of having his surround speakers installed in his back wall. But he later updated us, letting us know that his right wall is actually a piece of plywood covering a window, so installing an in-wall side speaker wasn't an option. I don't know why that's the case. Why is that the case?
Well, because it's not actually a wall; it's a piece of plywood over a window, so there isn't sufficient.
Well, I mean, how
space.
deep is that windowsill? I mean, can you fit the speaker onto the piece of plywood? Then what's the difference? But
I don't know. It's not happening anyway.
All right. Anyways, his right wall can't really see that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Since all of his existing speakers are clipped, and he sits about 2.5 inches away from them all, we recommended getting a pair of Atmos modules, which can also be wall-mounted and used as regular on-wall speakers, quite similar to the SVS Prime Elevation speakers. So we bought a pair of those from Best Buy, and they were supposed to install them too. But when the Best Buy installers got to this house, they recommended that he not add them to his setup at all. They said he wouldn't be able to notice any difference, and that the addition of these side speakers might interfere with his in-ceiling Atmos speakers. You're gonna pit us against Best Buy? Are you being for real right now?
Yep.
Are they right, or are they just not willing to crawl around this attic to run the speaker wires? What in-ceiling speakers are they talking about?
His Atmos in-ceiling speakers.
So he wanted to have side surrounds.
He wanted to add side surrounds on our recommendation, because he had already installed in-wall speakers in his back wall. Right. We're like, we would have rather had those on the side wall. He's like, well, I didn't put in my side wall because my right wall is actually a window. So we're like, well, you could do these on-wall ones. They're very slim. They've got the little angle built into them, so you can put them on there. I don't have images of them, but you can put them up there and have side surrounds and repurpose your current surrounds that are in your back wall as surround backs, as they should be. He's like, okay, that sounds good. Bought them from Best Buy. They're like, yeah, you shouldn't do any of this at all. That was their...
But he has in-ceiling speakers as well?
He has in-ceiling speakers as well for Atmos.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's going to have 7.2.4 instead of 5.2.4.
And his Atmos speakers are what?
Clips. In-ceiling.
No, I mean, are they middles and fronts?
I don't remember exactly, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. He's got 4 of them up there.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I can't see your Atmos speaker, so that's the only thing that's really giving me pause here.
I mean, it's really hard to see. There's the one image where there's like a little bit of a black circle above what would be his right seat. So if we're looking at his closet door, you can barely make out.
I can't see that.
It's really
I can't
hard to see
any of that.
It's all black.
Yeah, everything is black. Yeah. All right. I mean, physical proximity of the two speakers can be an issue.
But they're discrete channels.
They are. I know
they're not playing the same sounds at the same time, or only if they're supposed to be. Sound waves don't like bump into each other and get confused. It's not what waves do.
But physical, co-location. We've said this before in this podcast, where if you're going to have, top middles and side surrounds, which are going to be a couple of inches from each other.
Sure.
That's maybe not the best, most optimal placement that you can do. But they are discrete channels, as Rob says. I mean, if I could see it a little bit better, I might weigh in more on one side or the other. But really, looking around the room, I mean, I don't understand why they don't want to crawl around your attic. They're getting paid to do it anyway.
I know.
I mean, I don't think that that's so much it. So a lot of times their advice, while wrong, is not necessarily coming from a place of laziness or whatever. So I don't want to...
It's just weird, though. Somebody buys speakers from you, and then you tell them, "Yeah, you don't need these. We're not going to install them." That's bizarre. I don't agree with this at all. I'm like, side surrounds versus surround backs. Yeah, you can notice that. It's not going to be not noticeable. And interfering with the sound from your overhead speakers? No, that's not how waves work. So
No, I don't think that interfering is the right way to phrase that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they said that, the speakers are so close together that, they're essentially going to be coming from where your ear thinks is the exact same place, and therefore,
redundant.
can we lower?
Right.
Yeah, can we lower the side surrounds down the wall a little ways? I mean, if that's because they are angled, right? They're
Yes, they
sort
are.
of an angle.
They're like prime elevations, basically.
I mean, every inch you lower them down the side, until you get as low as you can possibly go in your setup. Well, I mean, that'll help a little bit. I mean, even if they're really, really close to each other, that's still better than nothing. So I would like to believe that they're coming from a place of we're looking at this and this is what we think based on what we've been trained. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm in disagreement with them. Full stop.
All right. There you go. Jason was over at a friend's place watching his Vizio TV. He isn't sure exactly which model. They were using an Apple TV to stream Amazon Prime Video. Jason knows that the shadows and blacks looked blocky and pixelated quite often. Is he correct that this is just a bitrate issue? Is there anything that can be done about it? That is not the end of the question, or there is more of the question?
That's just some more that he's saying about it. But looking at the image, if you're seeing it on YouTube, that is some macro blocking.
Yeah, that's macro blocking.
That's the hair. That's just macro blocking.
Yeah, and that I would say it was basically bitrate.
Well, it's compression.
Well, compression.
Even if you have a low bit rate, if you have really excellent compression, it doesn't have to look that bad. But that's just a compressed image that has turned into macro blocking in the shadows of that person's hair. That's what's going on.
So he told his friend to try comparing a movie that he has on Blu-ray to the streaming version, make sure it isn't just the TV itself. He also thought that maybe try plugging the Apple TV into the different HDMI inputs on the Vizio. Anything else we suggest? Well, yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I would worry about is if he had like some sort of weird sharpness setting jacked all the way
oh
up
sure,
or
like
something
an
like
edge
that.
enhancement thing,
Edge
a bunch of
enhancement,
noise
things like
reduction
that.
on
Yeah.
and all that. Yeah, that's a good call.
So if you look at Blu-rays and you're seeing this, you're like, okay, well, you've got some settings wrong on your TV, but that should be easy to fix.
Oh yeah.
Just put on Cinema Warm 2 or whatever that they have.
Sometimes those still have those edge enhancement and noise and stuff on those. So
a quick Google search will tell you,
Yeah.
what settings you should be looking out for. So if you're seeing this in Blu-ray, that's an issue. But to me, this is just compression. And this looks a lot like what.
No, that looks like macro blocking from compression to me. So I agree. If you got a Blu-ray on hand, you watch the streaming version. Find one where it's available on both formats, and I'm sure you will see some of this macro blocking in the stream version and not in the Blu-ray. So yeah.
Tap. It looks as though the Epson 5050 UB will be officially announced this month. Some retailers have started taking pre-orders with the price expected to be right around $30,000. The JVC X790 remains around $38,000 to $4,000. So which one? UB, the 5050 UB or the X790? I don't know.
Yeah, so thankfully we do have the TW9400, which came out in Europe. Got announced last year, at the end of last year, and actually has come out. So very little change from the 5040 UB to the 5050 UB. It got the thing that we wish the 5040 UB had, which is the full 18 gigabits per second HDMI inputs. So now it can do 4K HDR at 60 frames instead of being limited to 24. But other than that, exceedingly little difference. They updated the chip a little bit so it wobbles a little differently, supposed to look a teeny bit sharper, but very little difference. Black levels and contrast, right about the same. So the X790 is in a different performance class when it comes to black levels and contrast. They are just different. One of them natively, if the dynamic iris isn't pumping, is giving you about 4 to 5,000 to 1 contrast. That's the Epson. It's about 4,000 to 1, 5,000 to 1, somewhere in that range. That's the native contrast of the panels without a dynamic iris pumping. The X790 is 130,000 to 1 without any dynamic iris. They are just in a different class. Is it worth $800 to $1,000 more? Yes, it is if you can afford it. So X790 if you can afford it. If you absolutely
significant improvement in black levels. I mean, basically is what you're saying.
If you absolutely cannot afford it, well, the 5050 UB is still an upgrade from, say, that BenQ HT3550 that I've lauded. You know, it has better black levels than that projector. That's what you're getting for double the price. But when it's only $800 more to get the JVC, if you can afford it, get the JVC.
All right, Virgil. Virgil moved from MA, which is that Massachusetts, right? Yeah, to Florida, and he says getting his home theater set up is his #1 priority.
No food, no lighting, just theater.
No furniture. He's a bit heartbroken since he has a dedicated basement theater back in Massachusetts, but no such luck. Now he's in Florida because we don't have basements because the water table is about 2 feet down.
Yep.
He'd like to have a 5.2.4 setup, but he's dealing with a great room now, a living room, kitchen, dining room combo, which is very common here in Florida. We call them Florida rooms because we're obnoxious. Roughly 30,000 cubic feet total. The right side of his living room theater area is open to the kitchen, dining room, so no right wall.
Yeah.
And hardwood floors and blank walls as of this time.
That's right. It does look like his TV was his priority because he's got, 2 chairs and a TV, which he did note is a rear projection DLP that he's still rocking. So there you go. Good stuff.
Better sit on the access to that bad boy.
Yeah.
And he's got a sliding glass door on his left wall. So what we recommend for his surround speaker placement with no right wall and no desire to have a speaker stand awkwardly standing in the middle of his open space. He'd have to hang his surround speaker from the ceiling if he wants it to stay within the 90 to 110 degree azimuth that Dolby recommends. So he was thinking he'd put his surround speaker on his back wall, but that would work out to be a 145 degree angle, so it is better compromised by being too high or compromised by being too far back. They're both compromises. And it looks like he's planning on putting his seating inside the room. It's not going to be on the back wall. So that's something to consider too. Right. Sir, have you ever heard of something called an end table? Because end tables can sit on the side of your couch and a speaker can sit on that. And while it is, not the same as having it exactly where you want it to be or whatever, it will be, you could have a very low stand and it would raise it up a little bit. And it would, you put an end table on the other side, or one on the wall on one side and one on the end table on the other side, on the right side there. And that's a perfectly viable solution to this.
All right. Let's say that's a no-go. Let's just take it as rote. It's either going to be hanging down from a ceiling on the right side or on a back wall. Which would we go between those two?
I would go for a back wall.
I'd go for a back wall as well. Yeah, what you've laid out there is reasonable. Is it absolutely ideal and optimal? No. But hey, sometimes we got to make some compromises. On that back wall is not the end of the world. That's where tons of people always put their surrounds anyway.
Yeah. So if he uses the back wall placement, does he plug those speakers into the surround binding post or the surround back binding post? Well, if you put them into the surround back binding post with no surround speakers, you're not going to get any sound.
That is correct.
So yes, you're going to put them in the surround binding post.
Surround binding post, that's right. You only use the surround backs if you actually have surround backs.
For subwoofers, he was planning on building a pair of 18-inch Dayton Ultimax ported subs powered by a Behringer NX6000 amp. But is that overkill? I mean, it's not overkill for the room. Could some smaller ported
it's a great room, but it's only 3,000 cubic feet. It's
right. It's not super huge.
It's a living room, kitchen, dining room combo, but it's not open to the whole house.
Do we know that for sure? That there's hallways?
That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I've lived in Florida for quite some time. I have very rarely seen a great room that is not open to. I mean, there might be entryways into other areas, but I'm betting it's bigger than that.
Can the air move?
Could some smaller ported sub do the job and maybe sealed 18 inches instead?
I mean, I do think these 18-inch ported Ultimax with 6,000 watts of amplification is a bit more than you actually need for this size of a room.
For the size of a room that you told us.
Even if it's open. Come on. That's getting it's getting into a little bit nuts.
But why would you want to pressurize all this space, to be honest with you?
I mean,
I mean, instead of end tables,
where are you gonna? Yeah,
subwoofers.
you just put subs on either side and put your speakers on top of that. Watch them shake off.
Get some of that blue tack.
I mean, what would we be going if it were 3,000? Let's take it as road. If it were 3,000 cubic feet, you don't need ported 18-inch Dayton Ultimaxes. No, you don't need that.
Those are huge, anyways.
3,000 cubic feet, like PC-2000s, would get the job done.
Right.
But we do suspect that this is actually more open than only 3,000 cubic feet. So what are we thinking? Some of the nice 15-inchers? You know, the HSU?
If he's looking...
Rhythmic?
I mean,
Power sound?
he's probably going to want to build something anyway.
He's probably going to want to build something. I don't think you need the ported 18. Maybe the ported 50.
That would probably be more...
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about sealed 18s that he says? God, those are still huge. 18-inch drivers mean big boxes.
It's going to be a big box no matter what, yeah. So, I mean, and 6,000 watt amp is ridiculous.
Although it's fine. So, I mean, those Behringers are cheap, so whatever.
Yeah.
Having more amplifier power than you need is never the problem. I'd go for one of the 15-inch designs. If you're building it yourself, I'd go for one of the 15-inch designs.
I'd go with that, but if not, you're really wanting to get a big old box or a lot of output, which is what sounds like what he kind of wants.
It seems so.
I would go with Rhythmic. I would look at Rhythmic as
no, but I mean, Power Sound or HSU, they got great 15-inch models too. Yeah. So any of those guys.
Chris, last week we advised against putting some tiny cube speaker on top of Chris's surround back speakers that are only 10 inches below his ceiling. Chris was thinking he could bounce the cube's speaker sound off his ceiling to create top rear Atmos speakers, but we said no to that. We recommended lowering his existing speakers if he could and maybe adding wall-mounted Atmos speakers right against the ceiling, but he really does not want to do anything that involves moving his existing wall-mounted speakers or mounting any additional speakers, so he has a new idea in mind. He had called his wall-mounted clip speakers rear surrounds, but they're actually just surround speakers mounted on his side walls up high. Okay. Oh.
Yep. Some people call their surround speakers their back speakers or their rear speakers. Nope, they're just surrounds.
Then the pictures did not show them both together. So.
That's correct. But now what they do, now he sent us a new image and we can say, those are surrounds.
Those are side surrounds, right?
And that's where surrounds used to go, up high on your side walls.
Right. So could he add a pair of small bookshelf speakers? He'd put one on his shelf on his left wall and other on his speaker stand to his right. On the speaker stand. Then he could repurpose his existing on-wall speakers as Atmos speakers. Would that do the trick? He's literally got one chair in here.
Yeah, one forward-facing chair. He's got sideways-facing couches, but one forward-facing recliner. That's right.
I mean, I guess you could call them top middles.
Yeah.
And you could do that.
That's what they'd be.
I don't know how much you're going to notice them.
But if he also has top fronts of some kind, front heights.
He doesn't want to.
I don't know if he does. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of repurposing what he has as top middles would be to have 4 quote unquote overhead speakers so that you can steer sounds forward and back as well as side to side. If it's just going to be 5.2.2 and it's just going to be a pair of bookshelf speakers that are a little bit lower, not drastically, because that shelf isn't way below his currently mounted left surround speaker. So I mean, yeah, going back to the whole thing is just going to kind of sound redundant. I don't think he's got 2 subwoofers in here. Probably not. But the point being 2 Atmos speakers, not 4. If that's what it's going to be.
Do you already have the speakers? Are you purchasing said speakers? Because if you're not purchasing said speakers, then go ahead and try it. But if you are purchasing said speakers, I would say only do this if you can return said speakers.
Right.
Because this is not.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like eager to do Atmos when it's like kind of don't really need to given your current setup. You know? Yeah. I do have to agree with that. I'm like, you're kind of getting overhead effects as it is because your surround speakers are elevated. So if this is just going to be a 2 Atmos speaker setup, it's going to be a 5.1.2 or a 5.2.2, and this is going to involve buying new speakers to have them, just bookshelf speakers, basically where your surrounds are, but just a little bit lower. Yeah, I'm not going to super hype on that.
All right, we'll do one more. Nathan was reading up on the newest Samsung TVs for 2019. He noted their adaptive sound feature where they talk about using AI to optimize the sound based on the type of scene being shown on the screen. Boy, I already hate it. But they also mentioned being able to calibrate the TV speakers using microphones built into the remote to account for room reflections and echoes. Does this mean TVs now have something akin to Odyssey or Dirac built in? Could that actually result in decent sounding TV speakers? Could it? Yes. Will it? No.
Well, it's a bit like starting with Bose Cubes and asking the Odyssey or Dirac to fix that.
Well, I mean, in theory, could there be a good sounding TV speaker? Yes. Could there be an improvement? Yes. Who is what are you supposed to do with that remote?
Hold it in your hand.
And it's going to tell you where the reflections are? What kind of magical remote is this thing?
LG has been doing this for a number of years, ever since their OLEDs and that too. It's the same thing. They've got a little setup thing in their sound settings, and it uses the microphone that's built into the remote, because they're like, hey, we're putting a microphone in the remote so you can talk to your TV and give it voice commands. Why don't we also use that to try and tune the speakers? Doesn't work very well. It doesn't. I don't think Samsung's is going to work terribly well either. But I mean, yeah, everybody has this idea, right? I mean, I'm kind of shocked we don't see more of the use the microphone built into your phone through our app to do. I mean, they will. They're all going to do that at some point. If they aren't already, they're going to say, hey, pull out your phone, pull out our app, use the microphone in there to do a tuning thing. It doesn't work great. You're starting with really crappy speakers, and
I think that literally, if I would be surprised if it did anything other than just boost the mid range,
yeah,
or just goose the volume. I mean, I'd be shocked if it did anything more than that. It just did it universally, you know, no matter what the microphone.
I mean, this is not processing akin to Odyssey's or Dirac's processing. This is way less sophisticated than that stuff.
It's certainly not YPOW RSC.
That's right. It's a single measurement point, which, yeah, none of this is fantastic.
Don't get excited about that. All right, with who we got left?
We have Lance H, David F, Romain T, and Chad B. That is everybody who's left on our list. We'll answer you next week, gentlemen.
We want to thank your listeners for the week. We want to thank Virgil for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, giving us a PayPal donation. Also to our 81 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yes, want to thank our financial supporters. That's Virgil. Thanks very much for the PayPal donation. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation. And thanks to our 81 patrons over there.
Thank you, David, for talking us up for Accessories for Less, Ascend, and RBH. Thank you, Virgil, for talking us up to Ascend. Thank you, Romain, for talking to us Accessories for Less. And House of Cards, James, and Todd, thank you, both of you, for participating in the contest. Yeah, that's very good. David, Virgil, Romain, thank you very much for talking us up to those various retailers and manufacturers and that. And congrats, Todd, once again. And James, House of Cards. We still question why you love that nickname. But House of Cards, James, hey, that's great. I'm glad you guys got in touch and got everything sorted out. All right. It's all good. To get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Send that right away. We'll be happy to put you on the list. We answer all questions in order received mostly. FIFO. First in, first out. That's right. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew. And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant. Now go out and listen to something.